Welcome everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be working on the bathhouse that's in the hotel. And I'm starting off by making a little bath caddy. And I took some foam board and I cut it to the size that I needed that fit right within the bath opening. I covered it in saran wrap, and then I took some brown paper bag and I glued it and folded it over onto itself to make it double thickness. And then I started to cut away some thin strips from the paper bag. I think I was cutting them about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't have to be exact, just as long as the strips are very similar to each other in size. I add a little bit of glue to my foam that's covered in the saran wrap, and I'm gluing these little strips to it all along the long side first. I think you could probably go the other direction first if you wanted, but this is just the way I started this one. So I'm using the foam that's covered in the saran wrap as like a form to form this little basket that will become the bath caddy. So I continue to cut and glue my strips all along that long side first. And then I start to work on the opposite direction, crossing over the long side. Now that I have my form covered in both directions, I'm going to cut a strip of the paper bag that is a little bit thicker than the pieces that I did, and that's going to become the top edge of the little basket. I add some glue and then I wrap that little strip all the way around my form on the top edge. At this point, let it dry completely. That's very important. Once I'm sure that it's completely dry, I start to peel away from the foam, the form of the basket. You may have to use something like your tweezers or something to get up under there and loosen some of that glue. I noticed there were a few bits poking past that band, so I just trimmed them away. Then I checked the size to make sure it still fit, and also to try to figure out how I was going to have it rest there. I ended up putting a little strip of cardstock on each side that was about 4 layers thick. I'm using some of the patterns that I made for tubs in my tubs pattern making video, and I'm trying to create a pail, like a metal pail, and also a wooden bucket. Since they didn't have plumbing, I figured I needed to have some buckets in there to make it look kind of realistic that's how they brought the water in. I'm trying to make it realistic, but some things I'm just kind of adding into on my own. Like that bath caddy I made. I'm sure they didn't have bath caddies like that back then. But it was fun, and it gave me somewhere to put some of these bath accessories that I'm going to make. When I went to look around and study up on the bathhouses, you really can't find a lot of pictures, or at least I couldn't find a lot of pictures of what the inside of them look like. So I'm just kind of making a lot of it up by what I have read. Going to the bathhouse to have a bath was very luxurious from what I've studied. I believe most of the time the cowboys just went into the rivers or lakes to bathe. I know it was really common too to use a wash bowl and a pitcher and share the water with everyone in your family. For this bucket, I just cut another piece the same size and I'm doubling it up, and then I'm going to cut little strips from it, kind of keeping it narrow at the bottom and flaring out a little bit wider at the top. And then that way it will lay properly on the bucket, hopefully. The wooden bucket will look really similar to my barrels. I just glue the little slats onto the outside of the little bucket shape that I have here. And it's okay if they don't butt up exactly even with each other. Even if they overlap some, it's okay. It'll make it kind of look rustic. I'm making a couple of the water pitchers. I'm not sure if I want a taller one or a shorter one. I'm also going to make a couple of the wash bowls. I'm not sure if I want it to be taller or shorter or wider. I just want to make sure that when it comes time to put the room together that I have a lot of pieces to work with. If you would like to check out in greater detail how I make my buckets and tubs and pitchers, check out my galvanized tubs video. I show you how to make the patterns and then you can use them over and over again. Here I'm making a coat rack or a clothing rack. I figured that they need to have somewhere to hang their clothes up or hang their hats on. I'm just using toothpicks for the pegs, and I'm cutting them. And then I'm going to sand them a little bit on the ends where they look a little bit rough and pinched from me cutting them. I also think that I need to make some back scrubbers. I designed them and cut them on my cutting machine. And when the glue is still wet, I did, I think, 3 or 4 layers for these. I kind of curved it a little bit, and then once it was completely dry, then I painted it the wood color. I am using rope to create the bristles. I wrap a piece of masking tape near the edge where I'm going to cut it, and then the other end that I did not cut, I'm going to trim it flat, so I get it trimmed flat really good, and then I kind of shape it into the shape of the head of my little brush. I put glue on the bristles first and let it dry completely, and then when it's dry, I trim it again to make sure that there's no weird longer pieces, and then I glue it to the brush handle. I made several of these because I had a lot of fun making them, especially the bristle part. Once it's glued onto the handle, you need to let it dry completely. I think I let mine dry overnight. And then I trim pretty close to my tape. You need to leave enough for the bristles. And then to loosen up, you know how it was rope, to loosen it up, I'm just using my tweezers and really scraping in there and separating all those little fibers. I think it turned out really cute. And now it's time for me to start painting some of these pieces. I was worried I may not have made enough for this little bathroom, but once all of the little pieces were all together, I think I'll have plenty. I forgot to film the little pieces of cardstock that I glued on the side of my caddy, but you can kind of see it right here that they're about 1/8 of an inch wide, and I think I did 3 layers. I took some crochet thread and I stiffened it with glue, and now I'm just gluing it around my water pitcher and my little metal pail just to give it a little bit of detail. And also on this water pitcher, I wasn't happy with the way that the bottom, the white part, the seam showed, so I had put some there too to cover it. It may end up being a wash bowl, because I couldn't make up my mind on what size I wanted the main wash bowl to be. The pieces that I applied the crochet thread to and that were going to be galvanized or enamel, I gave them a coat of gesso, and then I painted a thin coat of a cream colored paint. I know they had to pay extra for the soap when they took a bath, but I figured I should have a little tub full of used bars of soap that they handed out. So I'm using some air dry clay to try to shape some little bars of soap. And then I thought it would be really cute. You can't have a bath without a rubber ducky, so I'm shaping a little rubber ducky using the air dry clay. Every time that I see a rubber ducky, it always takes me back to my childhood when I watched Sesame Street, and I always think about Ernie and that little song that I don't know if he sang it or it was just a song that played. I think Ernie sang it, but it always reminds me of Ernie. I'm so pleased with the way my little ducky turned out. And here I'm just trying to color the soap. I don't want it to be white, but I also don't want it to be brown. So that was kind of hard. I know you can't hardly see the color. And then here's Rubber Ducky's color, and I just picked a really bright yellow. Still need to paint his little beak and give him some eyes, but I think he's adorable. I chose to use the taller water pitcher for my wash stand, so I'm just painting it. I gave it blue trim, and now I'm kind of giving it, like, what would you call it, an airbrushed effect? I'm not really sure what to call it. And then I'm going to use triple thick and make these enamel pieces and Rubber Ducky have a little bit of a shine. I'm very excited to add these pieces to the room and see how they will look. The flowers on the front of my water pitcher I made with the water slide decals. So I bought this water slide paper off of Amazon. I have a laser jet. I do believe they had an inkjet. So make sure if you do order this, that you get the right one for your printer. And I also got clear, so I'm guessing that some have a background color. And then I went on Canva and I just put pretty flower designs, whatever words, whatever. I just covered a whole paper and printed it. And then I cut out one of them to apply to my little water pitcher. I made a pattern for the washstand and I cut it on my silhouette, and now I'm just assembling it. It's not going to be a fancy one. I want it to look kind of rustic. The front and back are one piece, but I layered it up to look like it was several pieces that were attached together. Then I attached the side pieces to join it all together. This little washstand is going to hold a lot of things, so I'm thinking that down near the bottom I need to add another little shelf to give me some more space. I'm creating the bottom shelf first, so I cut out my piece and then I'm gluing these pieces of cardstock over it to look like little slats of wood, and I'm going to scratch them up and make them look rough and rustic. I'm really hoping this bottom shelf helps to add some support to those legs. I'm so thankful that it fit. I was a little concerned since the legs are not one thickness. Now that I know that the bottom shelf fits, I'm going to work on the tabletop. It's made pretty much like the bottom shelf, except it doesn't have the little notches in it. Once I was finished with the top, then I'm starting on the little mirror. I'm trying to create a little short tabletop mirror so that it won't go up so far on the wall because I need room to put my shelves. I want it to look like it's adjustable. Since it will be sitting all the way at the back of my very narrow bathhouse, I didn't make it where it was functional because I figured my big hand would never get in there and be able to move it around. After all of the layers were glued together, then I sanded all of the edges and the inside edge really well. And to sand the inside, I used a paintbrush and I wrapped a piece of sandpaper around it to help me get in there better in the curve. I'm using a Q-tip to create two spindles that will go on each side of the mirror. I'm wrapping strips of paper around the Q-tip to give me the shape of a spindle. The first one was easy, but now I need to make the second one match the first one. I am not going to be gluing this mirror down to the little washstand. I want it to look like it, whoever's using it can push it around or tilt it however they need it to be. Now that all of the washstand pieces and the mirror pieces are finished, I'm giving them a coat of Mod Podge to seal them, and then I went ahead and painted them. I painted the mirror pieces first before I put the mirror in because it pushes into like a little groove section that I have on the back of the frame. I did it that way because I know I would get paint on that mirror. Even if I tried to cover it up, I would make a mess of it. Once it was glued together, then I had to touch up the edge a little bit to cover the seam. And then I didn't film this, but I had to lay the little spindles on each side and prop up the mirror and glue it and let it sit before I could glue it onto the base. I'm not making clothes here, but I'm just cutting out something that kind of represents pants and something that kind of represented a shirt so that I could kind of hang it on one or two of those pegs to make it look like their clothes was hanging there while they were taking their bath. I added some chalk pastels to make them look a little dusty and worn. And now I've cut up I think this was a washcloth that I bought, like a microfiber washcloth. I wish they weren't white though. And I was being lazy and I didn't experiment and try coffee or tea staining them, and I wasn't sure chalk pastels would really stay put on them. So they're a little whiter than I would like, but I guess we can just leave it up to our imagination. Here's that little mirror finished. I really like that I did it a different color than the table. Now the fun part, I can start decorating the little washstand. I'm gluing most of the things down. This washcloth, I'm thinking I may have to peel it up and change it out with something different because it's kind of thick, I think. I'm very happy with the way this wash bowl and pitcher turned out. So I'm thinking that I may do a video just on it by itself. This little water pitcher I'm going to put on the bottom shelf just to be like a spare water pitcher in case it's needed for something. I'm going to add that little tub of used bars of soap down there too as well. Even though in reality I think the barber would probably have control over the soap since he's going to charge you for it. I don't think he would be leaving it laying around for you to just pick up and use. Thought it would look cute if I put a sea sponge and this little bar of soap up here next to the wash bowl and the pitcher. I even added one of my little paper quilt things from my all the things that I made from one bag video. This little washstand is going to tie in really well with the tub. I need to make a little straight blade razor to lay up there too. The little clothes are okay, but I wasn't really completely happy with them. But I think they'll work for right now. Later on, I will probably replace them with something else. And then here's the little bath caddy and the scrub brush and a little sea sponge and a bar of soap. I'm also going to make a bottle of whiskey to put near the tub too. And of course a cowboy hat, I couldn't leave that out. And this was one of my favorites. Oh, and here's Rubber Ducky. I can't forget Rubber Ducky. Oh, and a pair of cowboy boots. And of course I had to make some signs that had the rates so that everyone knew how much it was to take a bath. And I will be adding some lighting later on, probably when the second floor goes on. I'm just not sure yet. I was really kind of worried about what I was going to do with this little small bathroom area, but I think it really came together and I'm very pleased with it. And now I can finally glue this wall in that divides the bathhouse from the barber shop. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.